I kind of just want to rewind the clock just a little bit real quick. Back to the first Sonic movie, just because, I mean, Sonic's obviously been such a huge thing for so long, but with video game movies, you kind of never know exactly what you're getting. I mean, there's been some good ones, but there's also been a lot of bad ones. But then
Right.
Sonic comes along and it's great and everyone loves it. And I'm just kind of wondering, back when you were first getting involved with this franchise in the first movie, did you have any idea it was going to kind of blow up the way it did? Like, is it still a shock every time you get the call saying, we're doing another Sonic the Hedgehog and we want you back?
Yeah, I mean, it's for Sonic 1, I think it was just we were so focused on just doing a good job. We just wanted to do a good job. We wanted to do right by the fans. We wanted to do right by the story. We all kind of were from the same generation, so grew up playing Sonic games. Um, I never assume anything. I knew like as we were filming and seeing Jim do his thing and seeing what they were doing as far as the story of Sonic, I knew that it was going to be a good movie, right? I had a feeling it was going to be a good movie. Um, to be invited back for Sonic 2 was incredible, right? Because the thing with Stone is like in my mind, I could have easily seen them been like, okay, well, he was great for the first. Maybe we'll just have him for one scene as a cameo in the second. But they didn't. They brought me back and they really loved the rapport that Jim and I had and have and wanted to see more of it. And then for Sonic 3, again, they never told me in Sonic 2 that there were ideas for Stone and Sonic 3. So I never assume. I always have faith but I never assume. And I'm never told until like the contract's coming in. And that's when I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right.
Doing it again.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that makes sense. That's really interesting. I mean, kind of bouncing off that, your rapport with Jim Carrey, incredible. I mean, everyone loves it. It's just so fun to watch the two of you interact. And I feel like, the energy you guys have just comes off on the screen so well and interesting. But even beyond that, I mean, your interactions are hilarious, but it's also just so cool to see how that relationship kind of evolves over the course of these three
Hmm.
movies. Because Sonic the Hedgehog 3 takes that into some different places that
Yeah.
wasn't totally expecting, but also was just like, I love this.
Yeah.
So what about kind of Sonic 3 and working with Jim Carrey again excited you most to kind of what were you most excited to explore in the relationship this time?
Well, I was interested in seeing where how much further the relationship was going to go as far as like story building. The introduction of Gerald definitely throws a wrench in there for Stone, but I think it kind of a lot like it fed more into story development as far as like their relationship. Um, there was definite jealousy there for sure. Feeling like a third wheel, maybe a third wheel that wasn't you're not even good enough to be a third wheel. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But I definitely think that Stone was had a feeling about Gerald also with regards to like not trusting him, right? So I think it was more than jealousy. I think there was like, I got a bad feeling about this guy. Um, so yeah, and then finding out that I was going to cut Jim's hair was a uh, welcome surprise. I was like, this is really cool. This is awesome. We're going to try something new. Jim trusts me with it. It was Jim's idea. Um, so that really kind of took that relationship to another level
sure.
too. Yeah.
That's literally what I was going to ask you about next because I mean I saw that featurette they put out before the movie was released and you're like so excited to be
Yeah.
actually cutting his hair and it's wild. Was that like how nervous were you? Was that intense or scary to do?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely nervous. Um, more than performance, it was like nervous because you don't get too many takes, right? It's his real hair.
Hmm.
So, if you mess something up, that patch is gone and you can't grow it back in 30 seconds for another take. Um, but in those moments of like, oh, I hope I do a good job. I hope I don't mess it up. Um, for me, it was reminding myself that, you know, trust in Jim's trust of me,
Mm.
right? He's been doing this at such a high level for so long. He's not gonna just be like, yeah, let's so and so just cut my hair. Um, So it was just, reminding myself that, he wants you to do it for a reason and he trusts you. So you got this and let's just have some fun.
Sure, sure. And kind of just off that, I was just kind of thinking about it and wondering, I mean, obviously it wouldn't make total sense for the story, but if that scene had been like in the first Sonic the Hedgehog, would you have been like still game for it? Or do you think it's because you're in the third movie now that you've worked with Jim for two movies before this that that trust was kind of there?
Would have been game for it because again, like I think if Jim suggests an idea, there's always a reason for it. I mean, like in the first film, there was, I think the first real gag we did was the grab by the inside of the mouth. And
Mm-hmm.
that was born out of, it wasn't on the page. Jim was like, I feel like, Robotnik would be more aggravated, would want to do something to Stone in that moment. And so I was like, what do you have in mind? And he was just kind of like looking at my face, looking at my mouth. I was like, you want to grab me by my mouth, don't you? And he's like, I kind of do. I kind of, what if I, grab you by the inside of your mouth? And I was like, I'm game for it. And I think what makes it easy for me to be so game for it is that Jim's not going to ask me to do something that I know he's not down to do
Mm-hmm.
or hasn't already done in one of his previous films. You know what I mean? So I think that alone, being familiar with his work, knowing his work ethic, it's I'm always down. I'm down for anything he suggests.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. And again, it's so much fun to watch the two of you
It's
guys.
insane. It's insane. It's insane to talk about. Like I just had a moment of like, do you realize the conversation that you're having right now?
I'm sure that probably happens all the time on set too, where you're just watching him do his thing and it's just like, whoo, it's surreal.
Yeah, just a moment of like, oh, right. I'm here right now.
Yeah,
Back to
for sure.
work.
I also have to imagine that filming Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is kind of a totally different experience than actually watching Sonic the Hedgehog 3, just because there's so much like CGI and special effects
Mm.
that the hedgehogs obviously and everything. So kind of how does it compare to when you're on set, like filming these scenes with Jim, to when you're sitting down and watching it for the first time? Is it like surreal, like a totally different thing? Like suddenly I'm watching all this having been brought to life?
I think what's different is that, you shoot so many different takes at times, and then, new ideas are born. You try those out, and then you just never really have any idea of what's going to make the final edit.
Mm,
So there's always an element of, oh, what made the cut? What's going to get cut? What idea did they go with? I know I shot, like there was something, there was like a little moment that I shot with, like in the Tails scene where, when we're both screaming, I think initially we shot it where Tails wasn't over my head or
mm,
over my shoulder. And so, seeing those little differences in how they work is cool because it's like, oh, okay, cool. We didn't shoot it that way, but that's how it turned out, and that works so much better. That's so awesome. Um, so there is always a nice little surprise.